Hello and welcome to the Antiquarian Outlook for week 20 of 2025, starting May 12th. I'm Spencer W. Stuart, Collections Advisor, author of Contemporary Issues and Rare Books and Manuscript Collecting, and host of the monthly webinar Collecting Insights. For more details on my services, publications, and programs, follow the links below in the description. As always, the Antiquarian Outlook is totally independent. Its producers do not hold inventory, nor do they represent any consignments or acquisitions mentioned. Links to auctions and news items can also be found below in the descriptions. And while you're there, if you want to stay in touch, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, as well as turn on your notifications. Okay, let's get into last week's results. Tuesday, Bearnes, Hampton, and Littlewood had antiquarian book auction. There were 413 lots offered, of which 284 sold, making for a 68.7% sell-through rate. Highest price realized was for lot 247, the works of Ambrose Paré, published in 1649. Estimates were set at £800 to £1,200, realizing £4,800. A buy-in of note, lot 184, this two-volume copy of Gulliver's Travels, published in 1726. Estimates were set at £15,000 to £20,000. A lot that exceeded expectation was 94. This collection of 29 chapbooks put together by Sherwood and Cameron, published between 1853 and 1858. Estimates were set at £50 to £80, realizing £650. As well as lot 297, this copy of Journeys Undertaken by Winston Churchill, published in 1956. Estimates were set at £30 to £50, realizing £500. Still with Tuesday, Pandolfini had books, manuscripts, and autographs. There were 259 lots offered, of which 187 sold, making for a 71.5% sell-through rate. Highest price realized was for lot 199, William Hamilton's Observations on the Volcanoes of the Two Sicilies as they have been communicated to the Royal Society. This was published between 1776 and 1779. Estimates were set at €40,000 to €60,000, realizing just above €44,000. A lot that exceeded expectation was 93. This manuscript map, created in Marseille in 1671. Estimates were set at €4,000 to €6,000, realizing just above €40,000. As well as this Adventures of Pinocchio, published around 1940, consisting of 70 original drawings. Estimates were set at €2,500 to €3,500, realizing just above €10,000. Starting Wednesday, just a quick look at Tessier Sarrou's art library sale. There were 312 lots offered, of which 310 sold, making for a 99.3% sell-through rate. The highest price realized for this sale was $107. This catalog raisonné for Maurice Utiro, of which there were 1,000 copies, this one being numbered 726. This hammered in at €810. On to RR Auctions and its fine autographs and artifacts sale. There were 795 lots offered, of which 603 sold, making for a 75.8% sell-through rate. Highest price realized was by lot 692, this portrait of Marilyn Monroe signed from around 1949. Estimates were set at $10,000 to $15,000, realizing just above $46,000. A lot that exceeded expectation was 37. This portrait, as well as signature of John F. Kennedy. Estimates were set at $1,000 to $1,500, realizing just above $15,000. As well as lot 234. This autographed letter by the father of immunology, Edward Jenner, dated from around 1813. Estimates were set at $1,000 to $2,000, realizing $11,500. On to Thursday, Swann had their Focus on Women sale. There were 158 lots offered, of which 105 sold, making for a 66.4% sell-through rate. Highest price realized, as well as probably the surprise of the sale, was lot 34, this first edition of Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead, published in 1943. Estimates were set at $400 to $600, realizing $20,000. A buy-in of note, lot 92, this folio of Juste Présent, featuring the illustrations of Sonia Delaunay as well as the words of Tristan Tzara, published in 1961, in a limited edition of 8, this one being number 6. Estimates were set at $20,000 to $25,000. As well as lot 157, This ink, pastel, and pencil drawing by Hannah Wilkie, dated between 1963 and 1966. Estimates were set at $20,000 to $30,000 US. A lot that exceeded expectation was 47. This signed presentation copy of Phyllis Wheatley's Memoir and Poems, published in 1834. Estimates were set at $1,000 to $1,500 US, realizing $8,000 US, as well as this illustrated autographed letter to Maynard Keynes by Dora Carrington from around 1917. Estimates were set at $700 to $900 US, realizing $3,800 US. Still with Thursday, PBA Galleries had rare and antiquarian books. There were 319 lots offered, of which 208 sold, making for a 65.2% sell-through rate. The highest price realized was by lot 213. This off-print journal article published by Linus Pauling in 1931 on the nature of the chemical bond, one of the first instances of quantum mechanics being applied to chemistry. The estimates set here were $6,000 to $9,000 US, realizing $8,750 US. A buy-in of note: this catalog of the collection of jewels and precious works of art, the property of J.P. Morgan, compiled by George Charles Williamson in 1910. Estimates were set at $20,000 to $30,000 US, as well as this Jesse Wilcox Smith illustration from between 1907 to the 1930s, a watercolor that was inscribed as well as initialed by Smith. Estimates were set at $20,000 to $30,000 US. Finally, Forum Auctions had their Tales and Morals sale. There were 198 lots offered, of which 188 sold, making for a 94.9% sell-through rate. The highest price realized was for lot 123, this Kelmscott Press edition of The History of Reynard the Fox, one of 300 copies on flower paper. Estimates were set at £3,000 to £4,000, realizing £4,400. A buy-in of note: this 6-volume copy of Fontaine's Fables, published in Paris between 1765 and 1775. Estimates were set at £1,500 to £2,000. A lot that exceeded expectation was lot 4, this compendium of early editions of Aesop's Fables from around the 1530s. Estimates were set at £500 to £700, realizing £2,600, as well as lot 22, again an Aesop's Fables published from 1586, with estimates set at £200 to £300, realizing £1,500. Moving on to next week, these are a few sales we have our eye on. Tuesday sees New England Book Auction's Fine Books and Ephemera. Dominic Winter Book Auctions will conclude its Printed Books, Maps, and Documents sale. Wednesday, ALDE will have its Anthology of French Poetry sale. Dominic Winter Book Auctions will have Photography and Cameras, Historical Autographs, and Documents. Hanson's will have the May Library Auction, as well as limited editions. And finally on Wednesday, Leyland Little Auctions will have collectible books, maps, and documents. Thursday, PBA Galleries will have the DC Universe Collection Part 5. Christie's will have Pierre Brosset's Book Cabinet. Thomson Roddick Auctioneers will have Antiquarian and Collectible Books. And Grant Zaharsko Auctions will have Americana. For Friday, Bub Kuiper will have Books and Graphics. And 2 sales over the weekend. Addison and Sarova will have Rare Books, Manuscripts, and Ephemera. And finally, Schramm Auction House will have an art and book auction. In the news, registration remains open for the July sessions of Collecting Insights for the Emerging, Expanding, and Legacy sessions. All registrants will receive a copy of contemporary issues in Rare Books and Manuscript Collecting. Please follow the links in the description for more information, and we look forward to receiving your registration. Well, that's been the week from here. Let us know what you thought of last week. Were there any things that surprised you? Any items of interest? Please put your comments below, and we'll keep the conversation going. Thank you very much for tuning in. And again, if you want to stay in touch, be sure to subscribe to the channel as well as turn on your notifications. All for now. See you next week.